On this edition for Saturday, September 26th, a presidential nomination to the United States Supreme Court. Our roads to election 2020 in the state of Louisiana. And in our signature segment, a struggle for the Black Lives Matter movement in progressive rural Massachusetts. Next on PBS NewsHour Weekend.
PBS NewsHour Weekend is made possible by Sue and Edgar Wachenheim III, the Anderson Family Fund, Bernard and Denise Schwartz, the Cheryl and Philip Milstein family, Barbara Hope Zuckerberg, the Leonard and Norma Clorfine Foundation, Charles Rosenblum. We try to live in the moment to not miss what's right in front of us. At Mutual of America, we believe taking care of tomorrow can help you make the most of today. Mutual of America Financial Group, retirement services and investments. Additional support has been provided by Consumer Cellular and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. With 38 days to go until Election Day, President Donald Trump is set to officially announce his nominee to be the next Associate Justice on the U.S. Supreme Court. 24 hours before a planned 5 p.m. Eastern Time event at the White House Rose Garden, NewsHour confirmed the choice is Judge Amy Coney Barrett, who is currently serving on the 7th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Chicago. Last night at a rally in Newport News, Virginia, the president said his decision to name a successor to the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg so close to the election is his right.
And I'm watching the Democrats saying how terrible it is that we're appointing. We have the right. We won the election, right? That we have the right. We won the election.
The Senate confirmation hearings on Barrett's nomination are likely to be contentious. In 2017, during Senate hearings on her nomination to the Federal Court of Appeals, Democrats focused on her conservative religious views.
Senator, I see no conflict between having a sincerely held faith and duties as a judge. In fact,
Barrett is Catholic and belongs to a small charismatic Christian group called People of Praise. Born and raised in New Orleans, Barrett graduated from Notre Dame Law School, then clerked for the late conservative Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. She practiced law, then taught for 15 years at Notre Dame before being named to the Federal Court of Appeals in 2017. If she is confirmed, Barrett, who is 48, would be the youngest justice on the current Supreme Court. She is married to Jesse Barrett, a former prosecutor now in private practice. The couple has 7 children, 1 with Down syndrome and 2 adopted from Haiti. Protests over a Kentucky grand jury not charging officers in the killing of Breonna Taylor continue in cities across the country this weekend. In Louisville, where Taylor was shot and killed 6 months ago by white police officers, protesters demanded prosecutors release all evidence in the case. The protests last night were peaceful, but police detained 2 people and fired flashbangs to control the crowd. In New York City, protesters marched across the Brooklyn Bridge, holding a moment of silence for Taylor. And in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a driver sped through a protest gathered at an intersection. No serious injuries were reported. The incident comes one day after a pickup truck driver hit a protester in Los Angeles. As the number of confirmed coronavirus infections passes 7 million in the U.S., several Midwestern states are experiencing surges. In Wisconsin, daily infections and hospitalizations are at record highs, while North and South Dakota have the highest per capita cases of infection over the last week. Across the U.S., data collected by the New York Times shows daily infections increasing by 22% on average compared to 2 weeks ago. Globally, the death toll from the pandemic is approaching 1 million, according to researchers at Johns Hopkins. It's a toll that could double to 2 million before a successful vaccine is widely available, according to the World Health Organization. In London, thousands protested the country's lockdown and social distancing rules. The protest, which itself violates public health rules, comes as Parliament is considering imposing new restrictions to contain the virus. And in Spain, parts of Madrid are locked down as the capital city and its surrounding region experience an uptick in cases. Spain was the epicenter of the global pandemic this past spring and now has more than 700,000 confirmed infections and 31,000 deaths. In Ukraine, officials are investigating the cause of a military plane crash that killed 26 people last night. The plane was on a training flight carrying 7 crew and 20 Air Force cadets from a nearby Air Force university. Only one of the cadets survived. The Ukrainian Air Force plane crashed and exploded as it was preparing to land at an airport 250 miles east of the capital of Kiev. Today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called for a day of mourning for the victims. He said all planes of the same model that crashed will be grounded until investigation is concluded. For the latest on the nominee for the Supreme Court, visit pbs.org/newshour. We continue our roads to election 2020 in the deep red state of Louisiana. The state Democratic Party has elected a new leader in hopes of energizing its base, electing more Democrats, and bringing back voters who left as the party struggled with its identity. Louisiana Public Broadcasting's Natasha Williams talked to the new party chair and Louisiana Senate Minority Leader about their plans to redefine who they are and what they stand for.
Katie Bernhardt, the newly elected chairwoman of the Louisiana Democratic Party, isn't wasting any time implementing her agenda, just a few weeks away from the presidential election.
One of the biggest issues that we have is that we've let other people brand us, and we've let national news media brand us and educate our voters on who the Democrats are.
Democratic candidates will need massive fundraising and exposure to beat back decades of losses to the state's dominant Republican Party. Governor John Bel Edwards is the only statewide elected Democrat and the Deep South's only Democratic governor. Right now, Republicans hold a near supermajority in the state House and Senate. Bernhardt, the Lafayette native, is a lawyer, wife, and mother of 4, and says she'll be busy repositioning and redefining the party.
My first priority is getting through this election strong and then jumping into engagement with new groups of Democrats to grow our party and work with our parishes so we have a presence of the Democratic Party in every parish in the state, and be of service to our candidates so that not only are we recruiting and running strong candidates, but we're giving them the resources they need to succeed.
The Democrats of 2020 have to be far smarter than previous Democrats.
Senator Troy Carter is the minority leader of the Louisiana Senate.
If we're truly going to be the party of the people, then we have to have a party that looks like the people and fights for the people.
Senator Carter says now as his party fights to win the White House, he agrees with the party chairwoman.
Being liberal is not a bad word. Those who've chosen to use conservatism as kind of a dog whistle for some other isms, we've got to stand face to face and reject that and challenge it.
This is a very red state. So how do you get those moderates to come over?
I think obviously broadening our scope and not making it so narrow that we are so far left that moderates don't see an agenda that includes their interest.
But when news broke last week of the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, both parties quickly took sides. National Democrats demanding a new nominee not be selected until after the election, but Republicans in Washington saying they would move ahead. Senator Carter is outraged.
To think that something as weighty as the naming of a lifetime appointment for a Supreme Court justice should be done in such a political way, I'm certain is making the framers of the Constitution roll over in their graves.
And as the new party chair meets with candidates and begins laying out her game plan to unite the party, a federal court recently overturned a controversial absentee voting plan proposed by the Secretary of State to minimize the risk of voting during the pandemic. Bernhardt says she will now go full steam ahead to get as many voters to the polls as possible safely.
Just educating all of our members on what the rules are, what the deadlines are, how they can participate is going to be key to our success. So that's some of the things we're working on right now as a party.
I spoke more with Louisiana Public Broadcasting's Natasha Williams about the current political climate in Louisiana, where rural voters are solidly behind the president.
The Democrats basically have lost a lot of the rural voters because in their estimation, rural voters feel like the Democratic Party has gone too big. They've gone to big city politics, and they basically deal with issues that don't pertain to rural voters. So President Trump is seizing on that. He comes here often. He got involved, even interjected himself in a governor's race here. So he's very active here because he has an active base.
Tell us a little bit about mail-in voting and what the conversation is in Louisiana about that.
Well, a federal judge recently ruled that a summer coronavirus pandemic voting plan had to be used rather than a restrictive one that the Secretary of State had tried to implement. Basically, she stopped just short of saying that this was a political move and we are going to not put people in danger while politics kind of rears its ugly head in mail-in voting as well.
And how specific are the rules in Louisiana for mail-in voting? Are there any things that would trip Louisiana voters up?
Not that I know of. Basically, at this point, the pandemic-affected voters are allowed to get their mail-in ballots sent to them, and they basically have to submit them in a timely fashion. It doesn't appear to be anything that's so restrictive, like you have to put 2 signatures on it, it has to be sealed a certain way. I haven't been run into anything like that at all.
And what are the primary drivers of what's getting people interested and engaged in this election?
Louisiana is very concerned about healthcare and jobs. Education's also a big deal here. A lot of folks are really kind of struggling with the pandemic. You know, how do I pay my bills? How do my kids get a good education? You know, how will I maintain and get what I need for my family?
And in terms of the pandemic, how is the region preparing for what could be another wave in the winter?
Well, in New Orleans, in fact, even though we're in phase 3, a lot of New Orleans is still closed down. The governor has been very sensitive to the fact that people want to go back to work. We need to open our economy, but also gauging those numbers, watching those numbers. And anywhere you go, you see evidence that the state is trying to indicate to you, we're not out of the woods yet. We need to do what we can to kind of, keep that curve going in the right direction.
Natasha Williams from Louisiana Public Broadcasting joining us from Baton Rouge. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Hari, for having me.
On Wednesday, the climate justice organization 350.org will host an online forum called Stronger Than Storms, where leaders on the front lines of the climate crisis will share their experiences. One organization participating in the forum is the Gulf Coast Center for Law and Policy, based out of Slidell, Louisiana. NewsHour Weekend's Yvette Feliciano spoke with the center's founder, climate activist Colette Pichon-Battle, about civic engagement and climate realities in the Gulf Coast.
In the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina in 2005, climate activist and lawyer Colette Pichon-Battle left her corporate law job in Washington, D.C., and went back to her hometown of Slidell, Louisiana.
I camped out in a tent in my grandparents' yard for a second, and then in a FEMA trailer for a couple of years. And I think that it's really been in the recovery where I've made my assessments around justice and equity.
That year, Pichon-Battle founded the Gulf Coast Center for Law and Policy, a multi-state climate justice and human rights organization. In 2019, she became an Obama Foundation Fellow and gave a TED Talk about her work in the Gulf Coast, advocating for the needs of communities of color on the front lines of the climate crisis.
Why is the work that your organization does so important?
Because there's a global climate crisis, and the rest of the planet is engaging in this reality while our country is still trying to figure out whether they believe it's true. Meanwhile, communities like mine are experiencing devastating impacts of a new climate reality that has to be acknowledged. I think the work is mostly important because communities like mine will be erased otherwise.
We spoke with Pichon-Battle a few days after Hurricane Sally battered the Gulf Coast this month.
What's been going on for you and your community there?
We've had several storms. Hurricane Laura, which hit a couple weeks ago, hit our southwest side. Those communities are still reeling. In southwest Louisiana, there was a chemical fire. And the chemical fire had chlorine gas clouds. And it's a chemical corridor and an industrial corridor that is subject to a climate reality that's going to put a lot of people in danger, either from toxic air, toxic water, floodwaters, or really strong storms.
Another concern she has for the Gulf Coast, voter participation in the November elections. Pichon-Battle says that after Katrina, voting became a major challenge, particularly in communities of color, due to extensive damage to voting precincts, the fact that people could not return to their homes, and Louisiana's complex absentee voting rules.
Climate change disperses people. one way or another. Either you left before the storm to stay safe, or the storm has moved you and you're in a traumatic space and another location. And in either of these situations, you're not where you normally are on a nice Tuesday morning to just go cast your vote and then go to the grocery store. And if you didn't follow deadlines, you'll find yourself on election day in another place, not able to have your voice heard. We have to think more innovatively about how we're going to get through this, because this is only going to get worse.
In the midst of hurricane season, yet again, Pishon Battle and her team are educating voters about the importance of connecting civic engagement and climate change.
What does it look like to vote in the aftermath of a climate disaster? What does it look like to redistrict after a census where folks can't complete it because of climate disaster? What does it mean to actually have representation in Congress based on numbers that were skewed because of climate disaster, or numbers that are changing very quickly, quicker than 10 years because of climate disaster? These are things we have to really get our minds around because our democracy is at stake. This is about, can we uphold our Constitution given this new climate reality? And I'm not sure we have enough folks telling the truth about climate to ensure that the best outcome will occur.
The recent grand jury decision in the killing of Breonna Taylor focuses attention once again on racial justice. It's an issue being debated not just in cities, but also in smaller rural communities where Black people are in the isolated minority. This summer, 1,000 people showed up for a Black Lives Matter demonstration in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, a town of less than 7,000. But despite the big turnout, Black people in the politically progressive region say they're still struggling with equitable treatment and representation. NewsHour Weekend's Zachary Green, who grew up in this area, went back to his small-town roots to learn more.
39-year-old Reggie Wingo lives in Berkshire County, Massachusetts. It's quintessential New England. Quaint, very beautiful, and very white. About 92% of the 125,000 residents here, to be precise. Wingo works for the Elizabeth Freeman Center, which offers services to domestic violence survivors. He manages their work in Great Barrington, the town where he grew up.
Growing up around here was complicated. You sort of like, as a person of color in an area like this that's predominantly white, you have to have like a different set of survival skills, almost like socially. And I think the first time I really noticed that like it mattered at all was like in 4th grade, you know, like we're at recess, like getting a fight with a kid over like kickball or something totally ridiculous. And, you know, he called me, and that's when I sat down and had like the first talk like with my parents about like how some people are racist, and like that is a fact.
Black people make up only a little more than 3.5% of the population in the Berkshires, but the county has been home to some significant figures in Black history. Wingo's organization is the namesake of Elizabeth Freeman, the first enslaved person to win her freedom under the Massachusetts state constitution. Her case in 1780 led to abolition throughout the state. The civil rights activist and NAACP co-founder, W.E.B. Du Bois, was born and raised in the Berkshires. And while the Black community here is small, it has had periods of greater visibility.
Between the 60s and 70s, there was a lot more diversity in the schools. City Hall was more diverse, so there was more presence.
Dennis Powell is the president of the NAACP's Berkshire County branch. He grew up in Pittsfield, Berkshire County's largest city.
Even the relationship with the police was completely different. Walking home from the boys' club, I always hoped that I would run into a police officer because I felt safe. Police officers knew our name. They knew our parents' names.
But many Black people in the Berkshires still struggle more than their white neighbors. About 36% of Black residents here live in poverty, compared to about 10% of the white population. That economic divide exacerbates the feeling, shared by many, of being unseen.
What are some of the biggest issues that you hear about from Black and brown communities here in the Berkshires?
Mainly, it's about the invisibility of the African American community in our county in certain spaces, right?
Gwendolyn Van Sant is the CEO and founder of Multicultural Bridge. Her organization works with local businesses, financial and cultural institutions to help increase minority representation in the Berkshires. One of her clients is The Mount, home of the author Edith Wharton. We spoke with her there.
Even if an organization has been able to integrate African Americans at some level, they're not at leadership levels of any of our larger organizations that you would find in any community.
Dennis Powell, who helped to pass an affirmative action ordinance in Pittsfield, says achieving prominence as a black person in the Berkshires can be an uphill struggle.
This young lady who had graduated top of her teaching class had been substituting. She applied for a teaching position that opened up, but they gave the position to a white male because he had 10 years experience. And we said, no, affirmative action is not based on experience, it's based on qualifications. She is of color, so that becomes the role model for so many of our kids. If she could be a substitute, she could be a teacher. And they gave her the job.
People sort of identify Central Berkshire, Pittsfield, with having people of color. And then so programs, if there are any, get concentrated there. And I'm saying, well, what about the children that are one or two of them in a grade or a classroom? The needs are actually more significant in a lot of ways, and so those 10% populations need attention and need support and resources, which has been a challenge for my organization, because if you apply for a grant, I can't compete with Boston with numbers, but the actual need in a community might be really greater in some ways because there isn't community around them to support them and create safety that they need.
20-year-old college student Dori Nduki says she's experienced that need for community. She moved to the Berkshires from Tanzania when she was 7.
Do you remember what it was like for you going from an environment where everybody shared the same skin color as you to going to one where almost no one did?
I think it's the first thing I noticed in every room I walked in or in any community that I was going to be a part of. The only time my blackness was really recognized was when white people really felt like they had no idea about certain subjects, and so people would come to me as the only black person as their reference or as their, source of knowledge.
Despite experiences like this, the Berkshires are still considered a very progressive place. But since the killing of George Floyd in May, there have been increased signs of racial polarization here. This summer, a Black Lives Matter sign in one Berkshire town was defaced with hate speech. For Dori Nduki, it's been a particularly upsetting time.
I've just been so angry and frustrated because it just seems like there's no end. And when you can't really see an end, it's hard to see or figure out how you can be useful in, preventing it or for helping other people. So that's been the hardest, I think.
Nduki decided to take action in her own way. With the help of a local youth organization, the Railroad Street Youth Project, she was able to put up a mural commemorating the Black Lives Matter movement in her hometown of Great Barrington.
I think what was fantastic about the protest was that so many people showed up. But I think for a lot of people that came, that was like, okay, that was my one thing of social justice, like we're done. And so I wanted to have something that would have a long-lasting effect in Great Barrington, but is for the movement, and so that's where the mural came to be.
In another progressive win, this month Great Barrington's town council decided to rename its middle school after W.E.B. Du Bois. But Reggie Wingo is skeptical about how much even a liberal place like the Berkshires can really change.
There's a lot of handed down generational racism or bigotry that sort of is the underpinning of the Berkshires. It's strangely enough one of the kids I used to have a huge problem with growing up. One of the kids my daughter had a problem with, I came to find out, is the son of this dude. No one is born intrinsically racist. You can tell exactly what is going on with parents by how their children act.
And Dori Nduki isn't sure the Berkshires is a place she would want to live long term.
Can you picture yourself ever setting down roots here in the Berkshires, coming back and moving here after you're done with college?
I would like to say that I would, but it's very frustrating always being the only black person or, not having a lot of black friends in the area to have a sort of community. So I would move back if that happened.
I think oftentimes we don't look back on it, it's not taught to us in elementary school.
Go to pbs.org/newshour to hear from members at the Railroad Street Youth Project. That's all for this edition of PBS NewsHour Weekend. For the latest news updates, visit pbs.org/newshour. I'm Hari Srinivasan. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and have a good night.
PBS NewsHour Weekend is made possible by Sue and Edgar Wachenheim III, the Anderson Family Fund, Bernard and Denise Schwartz, the Cheryl and Philip Milstein family, Barbara Hope Zuckerberg, the Leonard and Norma Clorfine Foundation, Charles Rosenblum. We try to live in the moment to not miss what's right in front of us. At Mutual of America, we believe taking care of tomorrow can help you make the most of today. Mutual of America Financial Group, retirement services and investments.
For 25 years, Consumer Cellular's goal has been to provide wireless service that helps people communicate and connect. We offer a variety of no-contract plans, and our U.S.-based customer service team can help find one that fits you. To learn more, visit consumercellular.tv.
Additional support has been provided by and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
You're watching PBS.